Most business owners want better results, stronger teams, and fewer daily fires. But leadership often starts before the decision. It starts with what you notice, what you miss, and what you're willing to question. In this episode, Dr. Lori Feldman joins us to talk about what great leaders see differently, why business owners often become the bottleneck, and how better leadership can change the way a business grows. Sometimes the biggest shift is not doing more, it's seeing things clearly. And I am with one of my favorite people. I've had her on the podcast in the past, but Dr. Lori Feldman is back with us today. Lori, how are you doing today?
I am great, and I'm thrilled to be back with you. You are also one of my favorite people, so it's a little mutual admiration society today, but you and I both know that it's genuine, and I think anybody who knows us knows it's genuine.
So, Lori, you have been working in business coaching over the last, was it 2 years at this point? Okay. And we have actually had conversations. So, I'm giving advice on a weekly basis to people across the world. I think we're in something like 47 countries at this point. And they're listening to the advice that I'm giving them on marketing. But you have been my go-to when I have issues in business. And I wanted to bring you on today to kind of talk about how people need to look at the leadership that they're portraying, the things that they're doing, and the questions that they're really asking themselves. And you and I have had at least a handful of discussions of things that have gone on in my businesses, things that have gone into my life. And I think a lot of people out there literally think, "Oh, I don't need a coach," but I think we need to define exactly what coaching is, right? So, when I had the conversations with you, I came in and we were talking about different things, and my full mindset, I was going in one direction, and you started asking me some questions, and those questions got me thinking. And it was funny because I did a complete, 180 on some of the things that we were talking about. And I said, "You're right. Why am I doing this?" And I feel like sometimes some people just need to step out of their bodies for a second, ask somebody else, and really kind of hear an outside opinion. Do you agree with that?
I love this description about what coaching is because what you just described is for me the win for me as a coach. When I see somebody that I'm working with stop for a second, because I work with a lot of really smart, highly accomplished, driven people, and they come in much like you. Oh, I or two or three. And here's the win for me when they stop and they kind of go, I hadn't thought about it that way, Lori. And they, in your words, step out of the box that they're in and think about it in a different way. Because oftentimes, much like in your case, it's not the thing, it's the thing under the thing that's really the challenge, that's really the problem. And so for me, coaching is very much just what you described. It's somebody to sit down with, talk through, not somebody who's necessarily going to tell you what to do, because a good coach shouldn't do that. A good coach should help you get to what you want to do and what works best for you. But a thought partner who can challenge you, who can listen, who can, for once in your daily life, provide a space where you're truly heard, right? And the other thing I hear from a lot of clients is it's so nice to talk to somebody who doesn't have a stake in my decision, right? Your spouse who loves you and adores you has a stake in your decision, whether it's, I'm going to take on this new project. Oh, geez, Matt, you're going to be gone more, right? Whether or not it would be good for you. Your direct reports who, when you make a decision, have a stake in what you decide because they're probably going to be executing that. Your boss has a stake in what you decide. Your peers have a stake in what you decide. And so when it works, coaching is that space where somebody listens who doesn't have a stake in what you're doing and who has enough experience to ask the pointy questions.
Yeah, I think that was the interesting thing when you and I had talked about. I had a client that we were talking about in the past and some issues that we were having. And you kept asking that you weren't telling me what to do. You were literally asking me questions, and they were, is this what you want? Is this the direction that you want to go? Why are you holding on to this? Is there something else? And it was interesting because I didn't think about those things because I'm like most people know me at this point. It's go, go, go as fast as you possibly can. And sometimes you don't stop to listen enough. You just keep going. And what you really need to be doing is asking yourself, why am I doing this? And that became extremely clear. So I've learned a ton, not only from marketing in the past from you, but now from the coaching. It's more of a listening session and just asking underlying questions of what's going on. And, we always focus where the spotlight is, but we don't necessarily focus on the things that are in the shadows. And I think that was the ideal aha moment for me was, yeah, it's very valuable to have somebody to talk to. And I talk to a lot of business owners, and the ones that are extremely successful, every single one of them keeps telling me, well, I have a coach in this, I have a coach in that. And it's funny because when you start a business, you don't think about that. You don't think, well, I'm going to get a coach or whatever. I may do some training, but I think we all need somebody to have those conversations with. And, a coach like you allows people to share the intimate thoughts that they have without you have nothing tied to it. You don't own the business. Many times you don't even may not even know who they are and their families and all those types of things. So I think that's really valuable.
And you're right. And you bring up something really important that I want to make sure your listeners hear. And that is having a coach isn't about remediation, right? Lots of people think from a corporate perspective, Lori's in trouble. We have to get her a coach. Okay. I encourage people to think about it much the reverse. Think about it like an athlete or a musician who has a coach to help them get better. Think about, my little neighbor who I've known since I was 2 is now a world-class Olympic speed skater. My little neighbor, Sarah. She has many coaches because she wants to perform at that level and they can see what she can't see. So it's an investment and it's not a remediation. And having one of my favorite clients is somebody I've been working with for almost 2 years, is somebody who uses our time together exactly as you're describing. Let's sit down and talk. Hey, Lori, can you review this thing? Of course, I'll review your email, but also, hey, I'm having this challenge, and we get to an understanding, much like with you, of what are you tolerating? Why are you going down this path? That's one of the questions I love. What are you tolerating?
I think I got that one.
Because and I wish I had asked that of myself earlier in my career. Look, I mean, that's the honest truth. Because we all get in positions where something's bothering me. I just have to fix it. Maybe that's not the answer. And tolerating is a word that makes people do what I did earlier, which is like, well, didn't think about it.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. Okay, so I've got a few questions that I put together for you, and
You bet.
we're going to run through these.
Great.
What are the most common leadership problems you see business owners struggle with?
Business owners is a whole unique category of leadership. And I love that you asked this one first. So I think one of the things that I really want to start with is that the business outgrows the leadership approach that created it. Your business at $250,000 is not the same as your business at 2 million or $250 million. Different approach is almost always required, right? So if you're starting up a business, your success comes from working your behind off and having your hands in everything. And then you grow. And then you can't do everything. You have to build and develop people around you. So I think one is that your business model outgrows the leadership that created it. I think the other thing that happens, as I hinted to, is that everything runs through you. you become a bottleneck, right? And people you hire don't have the freedom, the comfort to do what you hired them for. So I think that's a second one. And I think a third one is there's probably four things here. I think a third one is a lack of clarity, right? I mean, you're a business owner, you have employees, they can't read your mind. People think they're communicating clearly. And I will say to people as a former professor, you simply cannot over communicate. You can't. What is obvious to you, pardon my colloquial language, ain't obvious to your team.
Mhm.
And the last one, I think that business owners often struggle with is that it's easier to avoid the hard conversation. And so you end up paying for that, the fact that you pushed it off later. They don't go away because problems don't go away because you.
Oof. Those are good. Those are really good. So, I don't even know which one I want to dive into, but let's just take the last one, right? So one of the things that I've realized in the last 10 years is I used to sit on problems for a long, long time. And over the last 10 years, I've literally looked at them and said, I need to rip off the bandage as fast as I possibly can and get rid of this and deal with it. And most people ignore it, right? So it's, maybe this goes back to the early days when we're kids and all that. Like, you don't want to have those confrontations. You get into dating and all those other things and the breakups and all that kind of stuff. Like, we hate confrontation. There are some people that love it, but most people hate it. And I hate it so much, but I would let it build, and literally, it would, a week would go by. "Ugh, I'll get to it." Another week would go by, and it's just building, and it's sitting in your stomach, and it's that uncomfortableness, and you gotta do something about it. And I see this a lot with people that have hired people, and they're not quite doing what they're supposed to be doing, and, oh, well, they'll get better. And, I think Gary Vee is one that says it best. I think he's the one that says, we don't have a hiring problem, we have a firing problem, that we need to fire faster because we're just not getting what we're trying to get. Now, you also say that we have to listen and we have to share and provide all that value. And honestly, the teams that I've run and the teams that I run, I'm always asking them. I don't walk in and tell them what to do. It's, here's the vision, here's where we want to get, and what do you need from me? How can I solve your problems? What are the tools that you need to get this to? Do you understand all this, right? So those are the conversations. Now, I was not saying that 10 years ago, right? I was telling them, I want it this way. I want this, right? But it's funny because everyone that I work with now always tells me, I love that you give me the flexibility to be me. I love that you don't come in and tell me what to do or the things that I've done wrong. You're literally asking, how can you support me? So I think most people think that support is lower than the tier that they're at, right? So if you are running a marketing department, or you've got a small business or whatever, you're thinking like your employees aren't where you are. But what you should be doing is, your business is directly tied to those employees and the work that they're putting out there. So you need to elevate them in any way you possibly can, because they'll elevate you in the end. And again, I've been part of businesses in the past where you talk about how we grow, right? So going from 250,000 to 2 million to 250 million, the business changes. And there are some people that are fine staying small, and that's perfectly fine. But if you are trying to get to a $10 million valuation on a business, and you're still running it like a local mom and pop store with no inventory system, no POS, no like any of this kind of stuff, you're never going to get there. You're just going to stagnate the growth. So again, one question, five ways you came back. We can talk for probably 3 hours on just that one question, but those are all great.
So I'm going to throw in something that occurred to me as you were talking. I read somewhere once that if you want to understand your culture, you should look at the last three people you fired,
Right. Without
right?
it.
Because culture look, you and I have been in organizations where, there's a big strategic plan and there's a big vision statement and we have goals. We put them on the wall. I did that. I created those things that we put on the wall. But culture doesn't live in what's on the wall. Culture is experienced by people in the organization by watching the leader. What the leader says, what they don't say, what they ignore, what they reward, who gets fired. Is it the guy or the gal who's a jerk but is really bringing in the revenue? Not in a lot of cases, right? Is it the person, So I think I would encourage people listening and watching to think about what their words and their actions are saying and creating for the culture of their business, because as your business scales, that's your job, is to create the culture that lets it scale further.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to our next question. What is one hard truth about leadership that more business owners need to hear?
All right, I'm going to start with one here for you instead of 5. Your intentions don't matter as much as your impact. Period. End of story.
Yeah, I
Right?
love it.
Um, so this is another way of saying, you probably have heard me say this quote because I love it, and lots of people have heard me say this, but there is a quote from Maya Angelou that says, people will forget what you said and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Right? So intent versus impact for me is a really important thing that a leader should be looking at and should be looking at the mirror for. Yeah, I didn't intend for Lori to take on so much work. I just got all excited by all of these other things. And, she's really good. So I gave her more to do. The impact might have been that I, as your staff member, employee, now starts to feel, oh, I'm pleased, proud that you think I'm great, and I'm trying to get all these things done. But now I'm so overwhelmed that things are dropping. And all of a sudden, Matt, you're looking at me going, Lori, pick it up, girl, pick it up, without that leader looking in the mirror. So that's one simple example. But I think intent versus impact, I didn't mean it that way. Okay, but the other person took it that way.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Yeah, I can think of a few people where they take a majority of the work, and then there are others that don't take a majority of the work. And, it's you get that kind of, is it fair? There gets to be a point where people get frustrated. Some people are skating by, some people are doing more. So yeah, those are definitely some crazy things that happen in the workforce.
I think the other thing I would throw in here, and I had a mentor many years ago who used to tell me, just detach, Lori, just detach. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I couldn't understand. I literally could not understand what he was telling me about. His name was Dan, and I could not understand it. But leadership is not necessarily about being liked. And I know this sounds a little cliche, but it is about being respected and about people who work for you feeling that you're fair, right? Somebody else, somebody else that I respect very much during my leadership career once told me, people aren't upset with you, Lori. They're upset with the role you're sitting in and the decision you had to make. And I think as your leadership scales, there are more and more opportunities where you're going to make decisions, calls that aren't popular. You're going to have to make them. And that's where I'll go back to the comment from the other one. You can't over communicate. Talk to people. Don't
Yes,
assume.
I agree 100%. What is one leadership habit that can quickly improve a business?
Ooh, what is one leadership habit that can improve a business? Not me. Okay, I think we're going to go with this. Get curious before you get frustrated.
I like that.
Get curious before you get frustrated. So it goes along with some of these things we've been talking about. Why is Lori dropping all this stuff all of a sudden, right? What's happening underneath? And I think it also comes back to those kinds of questions we were talking about early about what coaching is about. What's underneath? It's not the thing. It's the thing behind the thing, right? And so you know this, and I know this because we've built businesses. It's easy to go. So many good ideas. Let's do this. Let's do that. I'm building another business now that I am having the same. Oh, there's such a good idea. Let's do that. Slow down and ask. Right. I mean, first seek to understand before you seek to be understood. Right. Some of these old sayings, but get curious. And here's if you're a leader out there with your own business, here's a free piece of advice. Avoid the word why when you're asking questions of people. Why is a question that gets people very defensive. Why did this slip, Lori? Now you're mad. Instead, lead with what? So let's think about how we can shift that question by just starting with a different word. What was happening this month? What got in your way of getting this done? Well, all of a sudden you're curious about me. You're
Mhm.
not accusing me, right? You're curious. And I'm more likely to open up to you, Matt, if you come at me with what instead of why. It seems like it's a tiny little shift. If you're a leader out there listening, try this for a week. Strike why from your vocabulary.
That's interesting. Yeah, I was thinking, what did we do differently this month versus last month? That's not it's not insinuating they did anything. It's just let's get to the bottom of it. So yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. I'm gonna have to try that.
Let's understand together.
Mhm.
And by the way, if we're going to come back to things, there's a big buzzword that goes around a lot, right? And it's this term psychological safety. And it doesn't mean everybody's all happy and we avoid problems. No, it means that when you, Matt, come to me and say, what happened differently this month, that I feel comfortable having an honest conversation with you. And that's one of the things the shift from why to what does. Because when I feel comfortable being honest, your business gets you as a leader and your business gets the data it needs to shift and adjust and course correct.
Love that. All right, we're getting up on time, so I'm gonna ask one more question.
Okay.
If a business owner listening right now realizes they might be the bottleneck, what is the first step they should take?
Find someone to talk to. Okay, that's the obvious answer.
Right.
Don't feel like you have to be the hero of the story. You're there to create the conditions where the problems can surface so that they can be addressed. And I'm not saying solved here, right? I'm talking about course correcting. My family sailed on lakes for a long time. And sailing works for me as an analogy here. When you sail a boat, it is not a straight line. You tack this way and tack this way and tack that way. And you eventually get where you're going. And I think much of what we do in business is that kind of tacking. We have a goal, we know where we're going. And if you don't have to be the hero, if you can sit down with some humility, right? To ask for information and to also say, ooh, I might be the one causing Lori to drop things. Okay, let me rethink that. Yeah, Lori's pretty fantastic, but she's not superwoman, right? Let me think about what my priorities are, right? How many business owners do we know who get all excited? Oh, look, shiny object, shiny
Yeah.
object.
All of them.
All of them, right? Without stopping to be quiet for a minute and say, what are my priorities? Where's the biggest bang? If I take this on, what do I need to put the brakes on for a while. And I think that humility, and I'll use that word very intentionally, having that humility to be able to and willing to stop and look in the mirror is really helpful. And honestly, so I started with get someone to talk to, and I sort of did it with a wink, but here's the reality. It's really hard to do that yourself.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that yourself. Much like, Tiger Woods had a coach because he can't see his own swing. You can't. You can't. And you can't necessarily see how other people are perceiving it.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today. Obviously, I will have you back more and more as we go through because you're always my go-to. But where can people find more about you?
Yeah, so the best place is to go onto LinkedIn. I post a lot. You can get more thoughts and see how I think about things. LinkedIn, Lori Feldman on LinkedIn. I think it's slash Lori Feldman, linkedin.com/Lori Feldman. I would love to talk with you. If you have interest in doing that, you can also schedule time on LinkedIn on my calendar, and I'd be happy to talk with you. I think that's the best way. There's lots of my thoughts. My life is an open book. You get a chance to see who I am and how I think.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for listening today. And check us out on Apple, Spotify, and even YouTube. And hit a like, share a review, and we will see you next time.